Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Autumn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You
Can
might
you
have
hear
to.
me?
I can hear you. Well, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. Where are you located?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right, you're in the middle of the country. Very nice. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's start with. First of all, thank you for being here, and welcome to our community. Let's start a little bit with your little background. Tell us who you are, and tell us a little bit about what's transpired over the last several years, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem at all. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon here in the Eastern time zone. My name is Autumn from the YouTube channel, Watch Autumn Keto. I make videos and resources all about my health and weight loss journey on the keto lifestyle. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Watch Autumn Keto. So my story in coming to ketovore-ish these last few months, it started in 2017. So I have been overweight my entire life. And I had been, yo-yoing up and down, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, tried veganism, anything, right? To just understand what people were supposed to eat in order to be healthy and lose weight. And that all changed for me in 2015. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and it runs in my family. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise that I got it. But honestly, I was asymptomatic for 2 years. The only reason that I knew I was sick is because the doctors looked at my intestines and told me, hey, you're sick, right? But I did not have any dietary restrictions, anything that I had to change about the way that I was eating. Up until that time, I had really only saw food as a way to control your weight, right? And so in 2017, I did the same old, new year, new me, finally going to lose weight, finally going to, stick to a plan. And I started the standard American dieting diet, right? My diet was 1,500 calories a day, which consisted mostly of lean cuisine pizzas and 100-calorie packs of Oreos and diet soda, right? All the diet things that you need when you go on a diet, right? And so I did that for maybe the first 6 months of the year. And not only did I barely lose any weight, but I noticed that every time I ate, I started to feel horrible. Right after I ate, I would feel horrible. And I realized that those two things were connected: eating, feeling bad. And then a couple of hours would go away and I would eat again and I would feel bad. Because once again, with the standard American dieting diet, you got to eat every couple of hours to keep your metabolism revved, right? And I would just notice that I would feel horrible when I ate. And I got to a point where I was so sick and so sad and so in so much pain that one day I literally Googled food to help you feel better. Like, that's all I wanted to do, was just feel better. And I noticed that I felt bad whenever I ate. And the first couple of videos that popped up, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Eric Berg at the time, just talking about keto and how keto was an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, right? And I knew that Crohn's disease was an inflammatory bowel disease. And so that was kind of a word, that piqued my interest. And not only that, I saw people were losing tons of weight. And I was like, wait a minute, I could feel good while, in eating and lose weight at the same time. That's what I've ever wanted to do my entire life, right? Not to mention, when you start to look at the foods that are part of the ketogenic lifestyle, I was like, I like eggs, I like butter, I like cheese, I like meat. Like, I already like these things. Like, it had just gone against everything that I thought was a healthy diet, right? Up until that point. So in September 2017, I officially started, the keto lifestyle. I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. What do I have to lose? If anything, if it just helps me feel better, that's all I want, right? And so I've been chronicling that journey on YouTube. I've lost in total around 80 pounds. With the pandemic, might have put about 20 back on, but that's okay, right? Because the beautiful thing about this being a lifestyle is that you can hunker down and you can narrow and go down the long narrow road forever, right? Keto's never something to start and stop and be done with, right? It's the way that I eat now, and knowing that as my journey has changed, my goals have also changed. My mindset around food and a diet and how you were supposed to eat and live has completely transformed, right? So I love sharing that with people on my YouTube channel, Watch Autumn Keto. And it inspired me so much that in 2020, I actually created a keto meetup event in Louisville, Kentucky called Keto Palooza. And that's LOU with like LOU is in Louisville, right? Because I'm a very proud Kentuckian. And so we had a keto meetup in Louisville in 2020, right at the height of the pandemic. Really, like it was so scaled down, and I was going to cancel it, but my community was just like, no, we really want to meet. We'll do all the safety precautions and everything. So I was so fortunate that we were able to just have a small meetup in Louisville, Kentucky in 2020. And then this past year, we were able to make it bigger. We tripled the size. Keto Palooza 2021 here in Louisville, Kentucky, we had about 100 people, and I'm already looking forward to Keto Palooza 2022, which it will be next September in Louisville, Kentucky. So I definitely would want to make sure that if you're interested or around the Louisville area, anywhere within a day's drive, we'd love to have you next September of 2022. And also another one of my passions is t-shirts, right? So I also started a keto apparel brand called Keto Strong. If you go to imketostrong.com, I have all sorts of t-shirts. This one says you can't handle all this keto right here. And that's just an inside joke that came up between me and my community while we were on Clubhouse. But I love being able to wear your pride on your body, right? I love being able to just, if people can see the word keto and, if they see me in the gym or if they see me in the grocery store, they just give me the side eye. Like, I want the conversation. I want the interest. I want people to know, flashing light, keto saved my life and it will do the same for you. Like, just change what you're eating and you could change your life, So that's really where I am today. So I spend my days creating content, creating shirts, organizing my events and just contributing to the keto community however I can. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm very glad to be here today.
Well, thank you. And you're definitely very motivating, and to hear all that stuff. Let me ask you, Crohn's disease, I see a lot of people with Crohn's disease, they come to this sort of carnivore lifestyle. Do you notice, even within the keto realm, because keto can be very nondescript. I mean, there's a macronutrient ratio and there's a goal of ketosis, but you could do corn oil and Diet Coke and be in ketosis. I mean, quite honestly. So you have to be careful about what you eat. What do you find? I mean, is the Crohn's disease gotten better? Are you on medication? Do you find certain foods affected a certain way, even within a ketogenic macronutrient ratios?
So I am on medication. I honestly haven't taken the leap to just not stop taking it. Honestly, if it was really inconvenient in any way, I probably would stop taking it. But at this point, I've been taking medication for probably 3 or 4 years, ever since being diagnosed. And January of 2019, regardless, even though I had been following the keto lifestyle, I did end up having to have surgery to have a portion of my small bowel removed, just because even when they found my Crohn's, they said my intestines had been inflaming and scarring for over 5 years at that point. Like, it looked like 5 years worth of damage that had gone untreated. So it got to the point where I did have to have a part of my intestine removed. But after that, I've been feeling really great in conjunction with the diet and my medicine. Now, I will say that I agree. I've definitely moved to more of a actual real food. I don't like saying whole food or real food. I like saying food. I feel like the word food shouldn't have to have a qualifier on it, because if it's highly processed and it's not real, then it's not food. I refer to those as edible products, right? So I've really removed all the edible products from my diet and focus on actual food. And I did notice that even being keto, right? In the beginning, my diet was made up of Atkins bars and Quest bars and processed food. I really didn't get much into the breads or the things like that. I have a sweet tooth, so I was replacing all these foods with, all the candy bars with keto candy bars, essentially, right? But for this past year, and ever since I've really honed in on what the point of being healthy is, I have really cut out most of processed food. I have found. And you asked if anything really affects me this past week, as well as I did with Thanksgiving and having more types of food, like, cauli mac and cheese, because I usually don't eat a lot of dairy. I don't eat vegetables at all. It's mainly just, keto and ketovore. But I made some keto sweets. Like, I made this keto pecan pie sort of situation and some keto brownies. And the erythritol. It's the sugar alcohols that really, really affect me. And I was in some serious gastrointestinal distress. And it was just a reminder, like, not only do I have a tendency to not be able to control myself when I consume these things in large quantities, they really have even much more of a severe effect on my body than sugar does, right? The alcohols. And so that was really, I noticed that I have a problem with those. Not so much vegetables, but at the same time, I don't really eat a lot of vegetables anymore. So that really, this past weekend was one of the times where I had to remember, like, and this is why I don't eat this way, right? Because I want to feel good all the time, and I feel good by eating real food all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I like the fact that, the term edible products, because they're much of the food in the grocery store is I mean, I hesitate to call it food like you do. It's certainly ultra processed. Let me ask you, why couldn't you lose weight on because there's people that clearly lose weight on non-ketogenic diets. I mean, there's clearly people that are successful at that. What was it about you that, you couldn't lose weight on, and again, I don't think the standard American food diet is going to be very good, but, let's just say a, Mediterranean diet or a zone diet or even some sort of plant-based diet. What about you couldn't allow you to lose weight?
Simply, first of all, it was my thought around dieting and around how you were supposed to eat in order not only to lose weight, but to maintain weight loss, like a healthy body weight. My entire life, I looked at it as something that needed to be done for a short chunk of time. Like if I really just hunkered down and like suffered really much, like really hard for like 3 months, 6 months, a year, then I could get to this point where I was done. And then I don't even know what to finish that sentence with. I could go back to how I was eating. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like even saying it doesn't make any sense. But the reason I could never lose weight, and because here's the thing, I could lose weight, I just couldn't keep it off, right? The reason I can never sustain a weight loss is because I never truly internalized the notion that in order to change your body and to change your life, you have to change how you eat forever. There is no, I'm going to do this until, right? Because when that until gets there, that's when all the weight comes back on, right? And that's why I hate when people say that keto or carnivore is unsustainable, because as soon as you come off of it, you gain all the weight back. Well, of course, what about you thinks this is something that you should end, right? Like you have to change the way you eat forever. And I never really understood that until starting the ketogenic lifestyle. And I can't even say that when I first started keto, it was my intention to do it forever. I was like, I'm gonna give it 90 days, I'm gonna see what happens, and then we'll go from there. But it really just clicked about, this is how food affects your body. This is what happens when your blood sugar rises. These are the hormones that are in place, and this is what causes your body. I mean, I just learned about your body, right? And how it's supposed to use food, ergo what food actually is and what you should be feeding it. And so I could never lose weight before because I never really internalized the notion that I had to change how I ate forever. And it was always just something that I had to suffer through until I could go back to doing what I was used to doing.
All right. So, are you finding that, as you feel better, and I see this all the time, and people come, I mean, they're literally what we call train wrecks. I mean, everything hurts. They've got, 4 or 5 chronic diseases going on. They don't want to do anything. And then as they do manage to successfully change their diet, they start to feel a lot better, and that allows them to do more things, maybe exercise, maybe work on their sleep, maybe, start paying attention to, sun exposure and circadian biology and all this type of stuff. So have you found that this has opened the door to other things outside of diet for you?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. All those things that you mentioned, I was just like, oh yeah, got that down. Oh yeah, I love learning and improving in that area as well. Because once again, keto is the first diet or the first way of eating, the first lifestyle change that really made me holistically understand what health was, or at least got me interested in understanding. Because for the longest time, I always looked at food as a tool to control how much you weighed. Until I got sick, or until I started to feel sick in 2017, I never equated food with being able to determine how you felt. right? Besides, oh, this Oreo makes me feel happy right now while I'm eating it, right? Like that was as far as it went. Food was entertainment and it made me happy, right? But I never stopped to understand, you know, how food is supposed to fuel your body so that you can exist optimally, right? So that you can exercise, so that I can get sleep, so that I can, it really opened the door to hormone regulation and understanding what the hormones, what role they play in our body. And that kind of made me chase like health, right? And you do that with, sleep, with stress, with water, with, sun exposure, things like that. Like all of those are like the building blocks to an actual healthy, sustainable lifestyle. And that's what the ketogenic diet opened the door for me to see.
One of the things, years ago when I did a ketogenic diet, I guess it's been 6 or 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
When I first did, one of the most profound things to me was I wasn't hungry, which I'd never experienced before in my life. I'm a pretty big person, and I used to eat a lot of food, and I still eat quite a bit of food. But I mean, that was the first time I can remember saying, "Wow, I'm not hungry. It's lunchtime, and I'm not hungry." Was that something that struck you as something that you found for yourself?
Yes. But I can say as a food addict, compulsive eater, like being hungry has nothing to do with me wanting to grab food and eat it, right? Like but I never put that together until the keto lifestyle, when I truly had no desire to eat, but for some reason my mind was telling me that I should eat. That's really when I had to take a step back and just say, what is it about? Am I bored? What is happening to where my mind is saying, you know what, you should probably go grab something. But if I check in with my actual body and desire to eat, it's just, I have none, right? And so what keto did is really help me separate. Now I can say there's a difference between being hungry and wanting to eat, right? Working, I'm rarely hungry with the keto lifestyle. I do, fasting, maybe OMAD, right? So I don't really get hungry until it's time to eat. But I do have that mental portion or, component where I will want to eat all the time, right? Like, but keto's helped me put that voice in check to just say, it's just a compulsion. It's just a fleeting thought. It's not something that I have to give in to every whim of my hunger. We were talking in my community a couple of weeks ago, and someone said, like, hunger is a suggestion. Like, hunger is like, check in. Do you really need to eat, or you probably push past it? It doesn't have to. We don't have to be a slave to this notion of I should be eating. I'm hungry. I want to eat something. Like, really take a step back and check in. And keto has been the first thing that has helped me turn that voice down to really separate the difference between hunger and just wanting to eat.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction. A lot of people eat for non-nutritive reasons, and I often talk about, changing your relation with food and why you eat. And like I said, many people eat for emotional reasons, out of boredom, out of just cultural acculturation, habit, all the types of time of day, whatever, because everybody else is, because you're watching TV, you see it on and on and on. You mentioned at the beginning you were eating Quest bars and, the keto candy bars and stuff like that. What was the reason for you to stop doing that? Because a lot of people, they see keto on the shelf, anything that's got a keto label on it, they think it's a health food. And I say a candy bar is a candy bar. I don't care what label you put on there. But what was the decision to say, I don't need to be doing this stuff anymore?
It got to the point where it was really the first couple of times that I made myself sick with keto food, keto treats, right? I remember back in my binge eating days, back in my pre-keto standard American diet, deprivation time periods, I would be so strict for so long. And then it would cause me to have these binge reactions where I would just try to eat all the junk food I could, and I would make myself sick. And when I started the keto lifestyle, I've started following 20, net carbs. At first I could control, like I would have one Atkins bar a day, like just as part of my keto diet, I would have my little meat, veggies, and my Atkins bar. But then I noticed even 6 months into it, I would like take out a couple of vegetables so that I could put in another Quest bar. And so I'd be eating 2 Quest bars, like things, and then 2 Quest bars. And then I realized that if I could essentially be carnivore, I could have 5 Quest bars in a day. Like, this is the logic that I kept walking down. And I realized like this, but I knew it wasn't nutrient. Like, I knew it wasn't nutritious. And I hated the feeling of feeling like it was never enough. I would have 1 Quest bar and I would immediately want another one. And then when I eat that, I would immediately want another one. And so those harmful thoughts and behaviors toward food started to creep their way back in, even though I was eating keto, even though I was sticking to 20 net carbs a day. And I realized that I wanted to avoid that feeling more than anything else. And so not only the physical feeling of being sick by eating that much erythritol and that much sweeteners, but also that feeling of like, now the nagging voice is getting louder. Now I'm having more difficulty turning it back off. Like, I felt like I was regressing. And I just knew that was the cause of it. And it really made me kind of not want them anymore. Like, I can look at a Quest bar from afar. And of course, I just say Quest bar because it's the easiest to grasp, but I'm talking about keto sweets in general, like nothing against Quest. I love them. They're great, right? But it's just, I can't do those things because I know that I tend to start to get those thoughts back around food. And that's just not the type of person I want to be. After learning everything I've learned about health and how I want to live my life, it's actually just easier for me if I don't even mess with that stuff at all.
So what I found, as a physician and as someone who, got into nutrition, that, knowing what to do is one thing, but then having a support system, accountability, having, maybe like-minded people around you is incredibly important. That's one of the reasons we have this community. What is your support system like? I don't know if you have family, I don't know if you have friends. Are they telling you, like many people, hey, if you eat keto, you're going to die of a heart attack? Or what kind of support do you have around you? Or what do you do to keep account?
Absolutely. So that's one of the main reasons I started my YouTube channel, was so that I could, really just log everything that was happening, because I didn't necessarily believe that keto was going to be the answer, or the thing that finally stuck. I just was doing it just to see, right? I had nothing to lose because I felt so bad by the time I had come to the diet. And so I was like, well, we'll see if this works together, right? So I just started posting, videos on YouTube. I would find other YouTubers in the community talking about keto, and I would get on Instagram and really just, being able to see people following the lifestyle that we're already sharing, even though in 2017, it wasn't nearly as many as are now, but, there was still a community of like online people that I could go follow, even just Googling the word keto or going to YouTube or Instagram and searching keto. And then maybe a year into it, my mother saw my results, right? And I inherited pretty much my food habits and my body from my mother. And so she saw that I was having results with keto and that it was making me happier, because she has that same food addiction. She has that same nagging voice. And she didn't know that wasn't normal until I was able to tell her about keto and like how it turned that voice off, and how I really love what I'm eating, but know that I'm being healthy in the process. And so my mother has been following the keto lifestyle with me for maybe, 2.5, 3 years at this point. And we're the only ones in our everyday life. I will say in the beginning, my family thought I was going to have a heart attack, especially when I got into fasting. They thought I was starving myself. And I was just, it's just crazy how much people don't know. And so I try to educate my family by being the example, but that I really lean mostly on my online community. So I'm on YouTube. I go live on my YouTube channel every 4 mornings a week, right? Just to check in with my YouTube family. I'm on Clubhouse. It's an audio only app where we talk every morning, and literally every morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, right? It's these communities where we can just go every day and be each other's support system and provide support, right? Because sometimes we're feeling locked in the zone. Sometimes we're like, I'm doing great. I'm really accomplishing my goals right now and I'm feeling awesome. But then sometimes we're like, I just feel really tempted right now. I don't feel good. I'm just angry all the time. Like, I just want to talk about how I'm feeling. Like, sharing that, building that community and being able to share your feelings with, my community on a daily or, every other day basis. That's really where my support comes from. Nowadays, my family just knows that I eat this way, and I'm still working on them, to say, hey, we all need to start to change how we eat. Let's get the Cheerios out of there. Let's get the oatmeal out of here, and let's get the long white bread, out of here. And so just small changes like that. But really my online support system and online family is where I really have found a home.
Yeah, another place that people variably get support. Sometimes, they're discouraged. Sometimes they're encouraged. It depends. So I mean, assume you still have a physician as if you're actively, treating Crohn's with medication. So surely the physicians maybe they've noticed your weight loss, maybe they haven't. I mean, most you'd think they would, but what has been have you seen any other health indices that indicate improving health or worsening health? And what has been the response to the physician, if at all, if any?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very grateful. I honestly wasn't going to the doctor as much as I should have. And I really didn't take a steady regimen with seeing a doctor until I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2015. And when I left the hospital, they were like, you have a gastroenterologist now. And I was like, oh, cool. And so I just got a new doctor that I was supposed to see every 6 months. And when I went to go see her the first time, really, consistently, in 2017, I told her I'm about to start the keto lifestyle. And I'm very grateful that she didn't say anything. She said, look, as long as if it controls your weight, if it helps get you to a healthier body weight, that's going to help all your other symptoms. That's going to help with your inflammation and all these other things. So she was like, let's take some beginning panels and then we'll check back in, 3 months. But I really don't have anything bad to say about it. So I was very grateful that my doctor, she didn't say go for it, but she didn't say, oh no, you can't do that. She was like, hey, if this helps you and you feel better, let's see how it goes. Right. So she did that. And so now, and then yes, the 3 months when I went back, she noticed significant weight loss. The 6 months after that, she noticed significant weight loss. She was like, looks like the keto thing's working for you. Keep it up. And then my primary physician, she's like, oh, you look healthy to me. And, I don't even get my labs really run there. It's mostly my gastroenterologist is where I really track my health. And so I told my primary that I was doing keto, and it was almost like, oh, sounds good. You look like you're doing good, And so it was just kind of like you look healthy, or all your numbers indicate that you're healthy. And so I don't have anything to say about the way that you're eating, and I'm kind of happy about that hands-off approach. I'll take that. But I have noticed that my CRP, which is, an inflammatory indicator, that has decreased and it remains low consistently due to my keto lifestyle. So that's really the number I look at. I don't even really pay attention to my cholesterol or, I can measure my own blood sugar at home and whenever I want, but whenever I go to the doctor, I always get my inflammatory markers checked just to make sure that nothing is happening behind the scenes. And ever since, starting the lifestyles, ever since my surgery, they've all been, good across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that, with a number of people, on low carb keto, carnivore diets, inflammatory markers tend to go down, despite the sort of what we hear is, red meat particularly is inflammatory. And I've just not seen that be the case at all, particularly in that. What is so, you talk about the erythritol and yeah, it's pretty well known that it causes all these sugar alcohols tend to cause GI upset for many people, particularly if you exceed a certain quantity. What does a day or week of eating for you look like now that you've kind of progressed through the junk food part and now you're back on to more, I guess, food, as you call it, real food? What does a day look like for you?
So it's actually for the past couple of months, it has been essentially carnivore, which because I think I was listening to Dr. Ken Berry or something, and it really just took he kind of said something that kind of just offhandedly, but it really had an impact to me. It's like, you don't need vegetables. And I was just like, he was just like, you don't have to eat vegetables. They're less bad for you than other things, but you don't need them. And I was just like, really? Okay. Because I found that I wasn't getting any particular enjoyment from eating vegetables. I would eat broccoli or cauliflower as a vehicle to put butter on, but I wasn't really like, oh, I really need my cauliflower. I was just eating it because that's what you do in keto. You pick a meat, you pick a veggie, you pick a fat, right? That's just what people say. And so when he said you don't need vegetables, if you just supplement that with nutritionally dense meat, you don't have to eat vegetables. And I was just like, I'm going to try that. And so I, for the past, weeks, in months, I've really just been eating mostly beef. So it's been mostly either been steak or it's been like hamburger. And then I like salmon every day, because he also said that, you know, chicken is take it or leave it sort of situation. I was like, okay, well, I have to think, like, am I making it a point to work chicken into my diet? Or, you know, like I really just kind of pared down, why am I eating everything that I'm eating and what will satisfy me, right? And I realized that it's just eggs, beef, bacon sometimes, and butter, and you know, I just love, and salt, right, and just delicious, you know, and so for the longest time, and then some cheese maybe here or there, and some cream here or there, but really the majority of my diet was beef in different forms, and you know, I put salmon in there sometimes, and I'm trying to incorporate some liver, but I'm still working on that, and so and that's really what my diet looks like. Is, I would say, like today, for instance, I started the day off, I've kind of gone back a little bit to keto, or wanting to have things besides just carnivore food. So today I had some pork rinds, and then I'm going to have eggs and steak. And then I've gotten into yogurt lately, just a little, you know, Greek yogurt, like the Too Good yogurt, but I'm actually now trying to figure out how to make my own yogurt. And then I would say maybe the most processed thing that I have in a day might be like a keto chow shake. You know, one of the little shakes where it has all, but it, you know, has vitamins and nutrients. Yeah, it has sweeteners and other things. And I have those maybe once or twice a week. And I'm saying if it's coming along with all my vitamins and minerals, then yeah, you know, that's where I am in my journey. But that's pretty much what I eat on a typical basis, is mostly beef with some eggs, and then butter is the primary fat that I use. And then I might have something that's not that to add on, maybe, you know, once every other day.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious as to, you know, as with somebody with Crohn's disease, has the removal of vegetables in your diet changed anything? Has it been a net positive, net negative? How do you feel about that with your GI function?
Well, I can say from a honestly, when getting out of the hospital and learning that I would have to have a low fiber diet moving forward, it kind of just took everything that I knew and threw it on its head. And I was like, I thought we were supposed to have a high fiber diet, right? But then turning out someone with, you know, my intestinal issues, like, you know, the less fiber would actually be the better. I do notice that I feel better, like just in terms of digestion. I don't notice that my food is being digested. And that is one of the benefits. For the longest time, like I said, everything I ate, it's like I could feel it working its way through my body, and it was so painful. And now it's kind of just like feeling good is my new normal. And I can very easily tell when something has upset that balance, and I work to get away from that, right? Because I never want to feel that way again. And I know that I'm fully capable of eating in a way to where I never have to feel that way again.
Yeah, and so your gastroenterologist basically recommended a low fiber diet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, and I think that, you know, they talk about low residue diets with Crohn's and also colitis and other inflammatory bowel diseases. But there's a lot of people that don't. They're still pushing fiber even in that situation, which I find to be, it seems like it doesn't work very well. And I've seen so many people have problems with that. What, you know, do you find, so there's some people that will say, and I don't know how long, again, I think, how long are you measuring your ketones? Is this something you do regularly? I mean, a lot of people do it in the beginning and then they kind of stop doing that, but what has been your sort of take on how much ketones I have to produce? Has that been something you've been concerned with?
So no, not really. In the very beginning, of course, I used the urine strips because that's the first thing I found of like, measure if you're in ketosis. And I'll say in the very beginning, like the first time you start keto ever, seeing that little strip change from that tan to that purple, like that's super encouraging. That's super neat to be like, oh, wow, something really must be happening. Not realizing that like, those are all the ketones your body doesn't use, right? It's just learning more about what all of these things actually indicate. I will say I do have a Keto Mojo. I do have a another ketone meter, but they're mainly, I maybe measure my ketones once every other week, just because, you know, I might wake up and be like, I'm feeling good today. I wonder what my ketones are at, you know? And it's always being keto for around 4 years at this point. I struggle to get above 1. Like, like it's always between like 0.5 and 1. And I used to be really upset. I'm like, oh, I'm not in ketosis enough or something, right? But when you learn about what the numbers really indicate and what that means, it's just like, okay, as long as I'm nutritionally in ketosis, like that's the whole point, right? And so I really just only measure when I think to do it, but like I can't be one of those type people that chases ketones because, just like that's why I don't chase the number on the scale, because you can't really control what the number reads. You can control what you eat. You can control how much you move. You can control how much water you drink and how much sleep you get. You can control those things. But at the end of the day, you can't control what the little meter says. And if you put all your hopes and dreams into that, it really can have the tendency to bring you down if you put so much stock into what this number says. And so I really don't pay much attention to it. Even when I wake up, if I'm feeling awesome and I happen to take my ketones and it says 0.4, I'm like, oh, well, that's okay. And then I'll just keep going, right? But I do think that the numbers and the data are really good to have, but I definitely don't chase those numbers or don't even use them as an indicator of my success on the lifestyle. It's the actions that I take every day that determine how good I feel like I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at that. I mean, I've occasionally checked mine. I don't think I've seen mine higher than maybe 0.6. I just, and I don't really concern about that. It's really, again, what you're looking at. What do you see in the mirror? How do you feel? How are you functioning? Those are the things we're actually doing. And some people that get so caught up in what this number is, sometimes it provides just a lot of anxiety and it's just confusing. It's usually the things you find that tend to work consistently over time. Do you find that there is there's people that continue to say, hey, long-term ketosis is bad for you, and therefore, in order to maintain metabolic flexibility, you need to do these carb refeeds or include carbohydrates in periodically. Is that something that you find to be necessary, or are you fine just continuing with a ketogenic diet?
So I will say I guess attempted carb cycling, and I might go back to it. Earlier this year, and it wasn't anything negative. I definitely didn't go to it. I didn't try it because being in ketosis long term was bad. I do like the notion of metabolic flexibility. I do think that it's important for your body to be able to efficiently use whatever fuel you give it. And so by making sure that it knows how to use all the fuel, I do think is something that is worthwhile doing if it helps you feel good. But for me particularly, it was hormonal. It was about the timing of my cycle, because I noticed that even like the more carnivore I did and the fewer carbs that I had, it would really irregulate my cycle. And so I tried, I looked into carb loading, or not carb loading, but like carb cycling in conjunction with and timing with your cycle to try to make it more regular. And it did, I would say, when I remember to do it, like, it does have the intended result, but I just get so caught up in eating what I eat every day that if I look up and don't make it a point to put carbs back in my diet, I'll be like, oh man, I forgot, right? And so I don't necessarily think there's anything bad with, being in ketosis long term, but I think it can be a personal choice of what the benefits to maybe carb cycling can be for you. And I did see some hormonal benefits, and so I think I might revisit that in the new year.
One of the, I guess, it's a little bit controversial in the low carb community, actually in diet community in general, is protein. Some people are advocates of higher protein diets. I'll share my bias. I tend to prefer a higher protein diet. And then there's others that think, if you eat too much protein, you're going to get cancer. It's going to kill you. It's going to shorten your lifespan. We only need a minimal amount of protein. The ketogenic community for so long was pretty, negative on protein, or at least, and that's kind of switched in the last, I'd say 5 years. People have become more protein friendly. But what are your thoughts on how much protein? Is there a protein goal you like to hit every day, or do you worry about that?
So for my particular goals right now, I've really moved into like body composition and weightlifting and giving my body the building blocks in order to build the sort of body that I want. I will say I agree with you that it really, in the beginning, or at least even when I started in 2017, protein was demonized almost. It was like, it's a high fat, moderate protein, low carb. You know, like they just scream moderate protein. And I was just like, I don't even know what that means, right? And so I do think in the very beginning, you know, in order to train your body to use fat for fuel, it's important to have high levels of like fat, I would say dietary fat in terms of your overall macronutrients. I do like to count macros and measure the numbers. Like I just like that information. And so these days, mostly my carbs are 0, but you know, I do like to understand what ratio, what portion of my diet is coming from fat, what portion is coming from protein. And so I do look at those numbers. I think in the beginning, it's important to feed your body fat so that it gets used to the idea of burning fat for fuel. But then after that, once you become fat adapted, you can, you know, you can and should maybe increase protein just to give your body the building blocks of what it needs to sustain. And so I myself have dabbled with higher protein this year and I like it. I don't really find it more or less satiating than higher fat. Like I really just play around with what I'm in the mood for. Someone, you know, there's always like, you should eat however many grams of protein per lean body mass and things like that. But recently I've just gotten to the point where I do know when I first started out, maybe I would eat like 100 grams of protein a day, but now I've moved up to maybe like 150 and 160. So I've significantly increased the amount of protein that I'm eating, but in conjunction with a little bit more fat as well. So my protein's definitely gotten bigger, my protein slice, but you know, it's still within, I would say, the keto norms. But yeah, I have put more of an emphasis on protein lately, especially with the goals that I have.
Yeah, and you know, I think one of the things that I'm a big proponent of, you know, men, women, particularly women, because they tend to undervalue this, but is the necessity for developing lean muscle mass or lean mass in general. There's bone, muscle, organ, you know, those all things are part of your lean mass. And, you know, it requires, in many cases, a decent amount of resistance training. Have you started down that path, you know, and had you done that prior to? And if so, does it seem to help with the overall diet in general, lifestyle in general?
So, you know, the exercising beforehand, you know, maybe even everything I've learned previously has really been about cardio. It's been about burning calories, right? The whole purpose is to burn calories so that you can, you know, burn more than you eat and get calorie deficit, lose weight. So I really used to put an emphasis on how many calories I could burn by getting my heart rate really high, right? But these days I have really turned, I would say for the past 6 months, I've really turned my focus to weightlifting and resistance training. And that's what I'll do the majority of, maybe 3 to 4 days a week. And then I just do cardio for fun. So I'm either dancing or I'm walking on a treadmill. Like I'm just doing things I like. I don't really push myself with the super duper cardio. I'll push myself to lift weights, right? And that's really because I want to build that muscle. And and that's also another reason why I've taken such an emphasis off the scale, because it's not really what the number says. Like it's the information behind the numbers. And so I have a body fat analysis scale, and that I think it's pretty accurate. At one point I went and got a bod pod, sort of like body fat, analysis. And then I used my home scale and I was like, oh, these are closer than I would have thought, right? So I use that body fat analysis scale to see my body composition change. So it's not so much about the weight number. It's, I might have lost 0.2 pounds this week, but what really happened is I lost 2 pounds of fat and I gained 1.8 pounds of muscle, right? Like I'm much more interested in that change than just the net number. And so, yes, I resistance train. I have an app. It's called FitBod. I absolutely love it. I mean, there are just tons of YouTube videos and things that you can do, but a regular weightlifting and resistance training regimen is my #1 priority right now.
Let me ask you about, because you mentioned you did some fasting at some point. Are you concerned about meal timing? Do you eat within a window? Is there, I mean, some people find eating, 1 meal a day. I personally, do best when I eat my meals earlier in the day, but that's, right now I'm trying to gain weight, so I'm eating as much as possible. I'm eating 3-4 times a day right now.
What a problem to have.
That's a tough problem to have, and so somebody's got to do it. But do you play with meal timing at all?
So yes, I definitely, by definition, intermittent fast. I enjoy just eating to, I don't know, to get it out of the way. I know that's a weird thing to think about, but what I would find, especially following the standard American dieting protocol, where they said, eat 4 to 6 small meals a day, like my mind was constantly stayed on food. It was just like, oh, I'm eating this, but in 2 hours I get to eat that, and then 2 more hours I get to eat that. Like, what am I going to eat next, right? I was always thinking about what I was going to eat next. Whereas with keto and with fasting, if I just eat all my food, my day's food in one sitting, or like 1 2 hour, 2 to 4 hour block, then I'm done. Like, then the thought of what am I going to eat next, I don't have to worry about it, because all my calories or all my macros are gone for the day, right? Like I've eaten, I've gotten the nutrition, and I'm done with it. So now my eating window is maybe 4 to 6 hours, but I really, kind of like you, a lot of people, when they fast, they say they skip breakfast and just have lunch and dinner. Like, I skip dinner, I have breakfast and lunch. So my eating window will be between like 10 and 1. And I don't eat anything for the rest of the day because I don't need to. And so I do like it better. And it just works out better in my schedule to not have these 3 meals a day, these 3 times or more, where I'm having to stop what I'm doing just so I can eat. I kind of eat for utility. I eat to get the job done. Then I could spend the rest of my day doing what I need to do.
Yeah, and I think it's a healthy way to look at nutrition in many ways. Is, why are you eating for nutrition and not hedonistic purposes? Although, some people do that. Let me ask you about probably early on, and many people suffer from, having these cravings, and they're just dreaming about pizza or cookies or cake and stuff like that. Does that something that still you deal with? And if so, how do you deal with it? Do you have a plan? Like I tell people, have a plan in place for when that happens, because it probably will. But is that something you deal with very much anymore?
So I never have physical cravings for food. They're always a mental cravings. They're always just the notion of, I want this thing, right? And it's just, I always have to step back and say, why? Like it's really given me, keto, just understanding health has given me the tool to stop and say, why do you think you want that? What about that would make you feel better, right? And so I don't really have cravings as much as I used to. Even if I ever did, it's really helped me understand, why do you think you need to eat this, and what are you trying to accomplish? Is it going to make you happy? Okay, well then what else can we do to make you happy, right? Are you just bored right now? Like, is it tied to a memory that you want? Like, I really take a step back and try to figure out what's going on if I have a craving. And I'm so grateful, because I used to not be able to control that. It used to be, I want ice cream. It is the only thing in the world that is going to fix me right now. I've got to have it, right? And when you feel so compelled to do something, you give yourself over to it. You're like, well, I guess this is how I am, right? This ice cream's really doing the job. But I don't really have cravings anymore, because first of all, I don't really look at that stuff as food, once again. And I'm just like, oh man, that edible poison tastes delicious, but what's the point, And if I do, maybe the craziest thing I'll have is like a Zevia. Like, if I want something sweet, I'll have a Zevia. That's about as nuts as I get with, caffeinated or carbonated soda. But it's really just taking a step back and being like, why? What's the point of that? And that really helps me nip it in the bud right there.
Knowing what you know now, and have, finally after many years successfully lost significant amount of weight and hopefully kept it off. Do you think if, someone were to say, well, I want you to do a different type of diet, let's put you on a whole food, low fat diet or something, or some other version, do you think you could still maintain your weight loss, given what you learned about yourself now?
It depends, like, because my first question is like, well, what's the nutrition look like? Because also hunger is a sign of like nutrient deficiency of like my body is missing something. Let me try to eat something in order to get that. And the problem that I find with most plant-based things, or like even things that just significantly cut out fat and protein, is that they're not as nutritionally dense or sufficient as a keto or carnivore lifestyle. So if someone was able to show me that, like, you can get, plus you just have to eat so much food, I guess, in order to get the nutritional density and the calorie, in the macros in 4 ounces of steak, like how much spinach do you have to eat in order to be able to match that, And so I don't think it would be as satiating as this current lifestyle is. And I don't know if it'd be something that I could or would want to stick to, because I would find myself, even with fruit, like fruits, like nature's strawberry, candy, right? I'd be like, oh, well, this is whole food. Let me just chuck all of this, right? Because it's that sugar rush. It's that sugar high that feels good when it's happening. I just don't even want to mess with that anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. And because some of the people, critics of people that are ketogenic advocates is, they'll say that, these people say that no one can lose weight by eating carbs or other foods. And I don't think most people feel that way, but I think it's a personal choice with what provides, like you mentioned, satiation, what's going to make you not want to eat and continue to eat and eat. And some people, when they get on these higher carb diets, their physiology just says they want to continue to eat, and it's requires a tremendous amount of willpower, not always, but in many cases, to do that. And I'm somebody who's been very disciplined my whole life and I can stick to things pretty hard. But I did the low fat, mostly vegetables, lean protein diet, and I did lose weight doing that. But God, I was so miserable. I mean, it was something like I said, I would not want to live the rest of my life this way. But it's interesting with that. Well, we are quickly running out of time. So Autumn, I want to give you a chance just to remind people of where you're located, how to find you. And again, thank you for coming on. It's been very enjoyable to talk to you. But where do people go to find out more about you and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. Once again, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated the discussion. You can find me everywhere at Watch Autumn Keto. So you can go on all one word. So if you go to YouTube, Watch Autumn Keto, it's going to show up all one word. You can go to watchautumnketo.com if you want to sign up for my mailing list. That way, if you're interested in coming to Keto Palooza, like I mentioned in 2022, you'll be some of the first people to know about that. And then Instagram at Watch Autumn Keto, Facebook, Watch Autumn Keto. It's all the same across all platforms. And then you can also go to IamKetoStrong.com to, get some keto gear, some t-shirts, tanks, and hoodies and stuff like that. That is really, one of my favorite parts about this entire journey and lifestyle is being able to share that with what I wear, right? And so you can find me everywhere at Watch Autumn Keto.
All right, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck to you, and continue with the success. And maybe we'll check back in with you down the road to see how things are progressing with you, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we'll see everybody back here tomorrow. You guys have a great day, and keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye now. Thanks, Autumn.
Join Revero.health for a 30-day free trial to get access to live Q&A with VIP guests, social community meetings, member discounts, low-carb healthcare providers list, forum, workouts, monthly challenges, early access to podcasts, recipes, carnivore diet guide, fasting guide, shred guide, and much more.